What happened? Oh.
This went out.
Hmm. I forgot to tell you.
We may just have to get started.
Hmm. Okay. I said, I know I'm going to mean. Which one looks better? Rose, which one looks better? Hello? I'm on. Oh, I'm okay. We're going to get this thing started here.
Yes, yes.
I tell you, good afternoon, my villagers. It's August 3rd. Would you believe it? How time flies. Look at us, 2026.
Yes.
Who could
yes,
have dreamed that
yes.
we, particularly the African American community and black and brown people in general, would be back, I tell you, to where I came from? Jim Crowism, minimal protection under the law. But here we are. It's too serious for me to sugarcoat, and it's too present for me to hesitate. So I emphasize slavery was not a crime, but also an injury, which explains why some of us are still confused in what actions we need to take. We can't find the words to defend it. If we should love, if we should hate, if we should just holler, throw up my hands. Now that's Marvin Gaye for you young heads. But the feeling is real. Can't find words to describe where we are today. That's why in my documentary that's coming soon, I talk about starting or creating a new lexicon for the African American community, coinciding with the language we speak already, not to dismiss any, but one for our lived experiences. Now, I was impressed with Pastor Quick's sermon on Sunday, as always, but Sunday he referenced two thoughts or speaking, for understanding. When they are studying the Bible, he said, they are introduced to two forms of perspective. One, semiotic. I'm going to find out from Rose if I'm correct in pronouncing that right.
Yes.
Semiotics, and that's the study of signs, symbols, and how meaning is communicated, which asks, what does this word, symbol, or image mean?
Right.
And the second one, hermeneutics, is the study of interpretation, especially of texts such as Scripture. You know, that asks how, and then that asks, how should we understand what is being said in its proper context?
Right.
And throughout history, many fields have developed specialized vocabulary because ordinary language wasn't sufficient, like medicine, psychology, law, and theology all rely on precise terms to describe concepts that everyday speech cannot. And if we are to label our experience that we call chattel slavery, ma'afa, as unique, then we must create languages ourselves. Now, the United Nations just declared that what we went through was the worst atrocity in the history of the world. Then we must accept the fact that we need new terms to define our lived experiences. In my soon-to-be released documentary, I speak to those terms which better identify our lived experiences.
Yes.
I'm also releasing a memoir to my late son and by extension all black sons. It's called The African Sun Beneath the Celestial Sun. And I had a picture here that I was going to show you, but I don't seem to. Oh yeah, here it is here. This is what it's going to look like, and we're working on it now, so be looking out for that. And I also just released my little pocket booklet that I told you all about.
Yeah. Okay.
Just small enough, just small enough to carry all time, at all times, and explain. Thank you, Rose, for and explain why the whys and the why nots when we don't understand why we have the Clarence Thomases of the world, the Candace Owen, or even some of our well-meaning members who just confused. Let me thank my team now. I want to thank Sheila, my producer. I want to thank Juanita, the advisor. And I want to thank my little ones, Chastity and Awa. Yeah, I think Awa. And of course, I'm going to thank our
Co-host.
not my co-host. I want to thank
our engineer.
our
Big
engineer.
Norm,
Why would
of
I?
course.
The great engineer, Big Norm. I call him Stormin' Norm.
Storming Norm.
A lot of people call him Stormin' Norm. I'm not the only one. And I certainly want to thank my co-host here, Rose, because she's so dutiful, just keeps me real here, helps me out. Of course, we have our guest here today.
Yes, yes.
A brother for all brothers and sisters, you know, on his journey. But today's conversation is about more than one man's journey. It is about history, resilience, and determination. My guest spent 18 years incarcerated, yet he refused to let prison define him. Since his release, he has become an example of what we are actually made of. His story reminds me of countless other stories from our community, the African American community, that is, and one that is really deeply personal to me. My own brothers, Eugene and Bland, spent 18 years in Trenton State Prison in the 50s. Their case became so suspect that a white Catholic priest, one of the good ones, right, dedicated years of his life fighting for their freedom and even wrote a book about what he believed was a miscarriage of justice. Now, here are two different generations, two different cases, but both remind us that the criminal justice system has profoundly shaped black families. And in the 80s, when drugs devastated our communities, and now with this present criminal enterprise occupying the White House, we can look forward, or we can't look forward to any decent future, but the future with limit self that help toward our recovery. So we must do what we always have done, work by osmosis. Just do it. That's why voting is so important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And even if you don't understand it all, just do it this time. Listen to those who know. Vote. If we fail to vote, listen to me now, we risk the chance of those past experiences revisiting us, and they are as I speak, which will affect our communities for generations. It will wipe out all the gains we have ever made since enslavement. And we use the word ma'afa now to explain exactly what we went through. You all, my conversation on this podcast is always to remind us of the past and learning from the past,
Yes,
so we can embrace a better future.
absolutely.
Our vote is one of those tools. We have to influence that. We owe it to those who suffered before us and to the generation that will follow. Again, I want to thank my team. I already said that. But now Rose will introduce our guest, our dear brother.
Mr. Dennis Porter. I am honored for a most distinguished guest with such a legacy. I'm going to start by reading your bio. Dennis Porter's family migrated from Georgia to New Jersey in 1961. He was 6 months old. He grew up in Newark at the height of the civil rights and the Black Power movements. He graduated Marcus Garvey Elementary and qualified to attend Arts High School. But peer pressure and the streets claimed him first, as it did many, many of our young people at that time. With no previous convictions, Dennis was arrested for his participation in an armed robbery slash murder of a liquor store patron. He was sentenced to 25 years to life at just 17 years old. 11 years into his incarceration and the first time in administrative segregation, Dennis turned to God, amen, for his help in prayer. Only days later, he received the vision based on the prodigal son and his redemption upon returning home. Like the prodigal son, Dennis humbled himself and confessed his sins openly, vowing to be a model example for other prisoners. God bless you. For the sake of the community. It worked out well. Scores of prisons signed on. A letter to the superintendent explaining PSD led to reduced hold time, and later parole released Dennis to his family. And on the first day of summer in 1995, Dennis has gone on to win numerous awards and acknowledgments from the grassroots community to the U.S. House of Representatives and the state Senate. In 2006, Mayor Cory Booker chose him as the first director of prison reentry. By 2023, PSD went on to establish it in New Jersey and Georgia, Florida, and Ghana, Africa.
Great.
Well, God bless you for those accomplishments.
Excellent. I don't know what to say about it, but I want you to first tell I welcome my brother. Welcome.
Yes.
First, let me explain to us about prison reentry. What is that? For we
Yes.
can know.
You gotta unmute. Tell them to unmute.
Can you unmute?
What is it?
Unmute on your end. Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you all for inviting me, allowing me to come on and share some of my experience with you all. We are all connected, as you are making the point very clear. If we were not collected, pardon me, if we were not connected, then when we went up into that prison system, we would not have believed that we could rely on our redemption being accepted by our community. But we believe that if we change our way of thinking and heart, that our
Amen.
community would respond to it. You asked me a question, I believe it was in regards to what does prison reentry mean?
Exactly. Yeah. What does that give us an idea what that means?
Okay, well, reentry is after you've been incarcerated for a period of time. Reentry has to do with the process of returning back to civilization.
Mm-hmm.
That process in itself, if you are asking in regards to what it's like,
Mm-hmm.
as a perfect example, when I first got home, I was on Central Avenue and I couldn't cross the street.
Mm.
I had not seen the speed of traffic in so long
Mm-hmm.
that I could not calculate when it was safe to
Mm-hmm.
cross. The children, seeing some school children coming to the corner, I walked up the block and stood behind them.
Mm.
And as the children looked, I looked. And when they started walking, I walked behind them. The lesson that I'm serving here is when we say it takes a village to raise a child,
Yes.
you actually need a village to raise a former offender or returning citizen
Okay.
because they have disconnected in many ways
Mm-hmm.
from the norms that most adults their age are familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so that's a program that I see that you are very much involved with, and I'm saying, what possessed you to start a program like that after you got out and with your freedom? You must have seen
Well,
the need.
first of all, the program was started while I was in prison.
Okay.
The program was founded in the hole when
Mm.
they threw me in administrative segregation
Mhm.
in the 11th year of my sentence. They threw me in segregation for reasons that were not unfair. I was a target at the time.
Mhm.
They felt like I had too much influence, at least certain people did. And I decided to protest by dry fasting as a what do you call it, protest.
Mhm.
And in the fourth day, going into the fifth day of the fast, I
Mm.
had already refused repeatedly to accept any food or drink. So in the fifth day, going into the fifth day, my appeal came back and the warden upheld the charges. That just angered me to such a degree that, like most prisoners who get desperate, I decided that maybe I should set the cell on fire. Maybe I should flood it out and get some attention since I'm not getting any attention. And as I walked back and forth in this anger in the cell, I had no idea that when you have eaten for 4 or 5 days, your vitals, you can't control them like you normally would. And so once I got so angry about it, I could feel my heart beating in my head.
Mm.
It scared me. I sat on the side of the bed and the thoughts started coming to me that you don't have nothing. You don't have, you can't make a phone call. You ain't got a stamp.
Mm.
You can't, you are it. This is it. This is the bottom. And then the thought hit me, man, you can't do nothing. The only thing you can do is pray.
Mhm.
That thought, I got up in the bed and started doing making the prayer because the cell was so dirty. So I got up in the bed to make the prayer, and it was an angry prayer. I was saying to God
Mhm.
that this ain't right.
Right.
This is
I
not right.
feel you.
Also felt that way because of the number of prisoners that I was seeing being treated very badly, and in
Mhm.
fact, while I was in that hole, one of them was actually killed
Oh
by the
Mm.
mercy.
police.
Mm.
And my prayer to God was more so to help me help my people.
Mm.
In the process of me making this prayer, I should say prior to me going into that hole for 11 years, I had been under the sort of the tutelage of older prisoners who took me under wing, knowing me as a little kid on the street
Mhm.
and knowing I was not a bad kid. They knew me as this very kind, very good kid.
Mm.
And so when I got in there, they made it their business that I was not going to come out of there being foolish and spending years playing cards and just lifting weights.
Mhm.
So for up to 11 years, I had read many books on the history of us, on the sciences of life, philosophies, all kind of stuff. So but I never knew how I would use it. And as I was on that prayer, making that prayer, the thoughts started coming to me like, well, if you're so upset about it, won't you do something about it?
Mm.
And then I call it the God conscious.
Mhm.
And after a while, more thoughts started coming while I was praying. The pen is mightier than the sword. You've studied societies, you understand philosophies, you understand how to start organizations, you learned all of that. You just about understand everything about how to set up one. So why don't you do that? This thought took me completely out of the condition mentally.
Oh, praise the Lord. Mm.
Somehow I knew that was the answer.
Mhm.
And then the final thought I can recall was, okay, now, if you're going to do this, you can't do this by rebelling.
Mhm.
Because if you rebel outright, you're not going to get far. You have to be wise as serpents and cunning as dogs.
Mhm.
Amen.
you're going to have to be like the salt of the woman who was leaving the dough, and after a while she was sneaking so much salt into it until after a while it was all salt. So you're going to have to do this, as the scriptures say of the Son of Man, that he cometh as a thief,
Right.
that you don't see this happening. So I'm dealing with all these thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and then it hits me. Well, whatever this is that we're going to do, it has to be something that redeems us, that gives us an opportunity to try to make things right again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought stuck with me for a long time in that hole for a while. And then finally, I remembered coming up in the church and a story about a young
Amen.
man that had departed
Mm-hmm.
from his home. And that became the impetus for me to pursue the story of the prodigal son.
Okay. Mm.
An officer brought me a Bible. I asked him on his break if he would stop by the chapel and bring me a Bible, and he brought me a Bible. And that's where the name came from, Prodigal Sons and Daughters. It became a mission after that to
Mm-hmm.
be the model first, and then all others behind me would have to live up to the same standards. And that was the beginning of Prodigal Sons and Daughters.
Oh, okay. That's interesting because I didn't know what that acronym was. Prodigal son and daughter. That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I wished I mentioned to you that I have sad experiences around my brothers who was there. I wish one of them had my brother Bland because he's now still blaming God for not rescuing him, knowing that he was an innocent little young Southern boy that they picked up. And but you saw the light. Everybody doesn't, but
Yes.
in any case, that's very interesting. Very
Yes.
interesting in how you came through.
Yes.
Everyone don't have that opportunity. Now, give me an idea. You talked about your coming up here at an early age from, was it North Carolina or the South?
Mm-hmm.
Georgia,
Just give us a
from Georgia.
from Georgia. Okay, from
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. Most of us up here from one of the places, Georgia, Florida, otherwise.
Right.
Okay, just talk about that for a minute because that's interesting how you came up and at 15, right?
Right.
You was
Right.
brought up
Right. That's
in,
very interesting. I thank you for the opportunity to share this.
right.
Um, okay, so I came up into Newark, and people have to understand that Newark in 1960, 1961 was like most major cities, encouraging blacks to come to these cities. But the industrial age was kind of ending at that point. And even though
Mm-hmm.
for many years they wanted populations to come into the cities to fill factory jobs and otherwise,
Right.
my parents got here, and the break for my father was getting into this construction business. So we were able to survive in that, but we were brought into the Central Ward, which was basically, for the lack of a better word, the sort of like the refugee camps or the dumping ground
Mm-hmm.
for the poor's coming into Newark. My family was right there in the midst of it. So I came up in an atmosphere, being extremely poor, of dog eat dog. You know it. If you're from Newark, you know you got to be tough to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I came up in that atmosphere, and immediately as I began to come up, I had no idea as to why it was I was always a target.
Mm.
My parents having 8 children by the time I was maybe about 9 years old.
Mm.
Um, Whenever we wanted something, our parents always taught us back in that day, you could tell your child to go and walk out on the avenue and go into the shops and seek a job. And a lot of times you could get a job.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm mentioning all of this because it was under that condition that I got bullied. I started getting bullied
Mm.
constantly.
Mm.
Mm.
And I didn't understand what was going on. Um, it wasn't any better that my father was from an era of you get a stick, hit the first one, and the rest of them are scattered. I
Yeah.
told my father, I told my father, I ain't sure if that still works, Pop. You
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Uh, and I must say, honestly, it probably would have worked if I was that kind of kid. But
Right.
I was more like my mother, who was a very sensitive person and was not a peaceful person. So
Mhm.
I had to start hiding the fact that I was being bullied.
Wow.
This bull, this bullying followed me from 7 years old. We moved out of that neighborhood. I ended up in a neighborhood, another neighborhood that included even my cousins bullying me.
Wow.
And this went on till I was about 15 years old. Um, in the process, it destroyed a lot of my self-esteem. It destroyed a lot of my confidence. Being a talented kid, I'm an artist. Um, I was a singer,
Mm,
but this really took things away from me. It kind of took my confidence out of me.
mm,
Um, and so I became introverted for a while. And as the bullying continued, I was going to Arts High, and I got kind of familiar with taking the long way home. So I would avoid the neighborhood. And but one day, in my attempts to do that, I turned the corner and ran right into a crew.
mm,
And
Mm.
so instantly, I just dropped my books and threw my hands up because I knew what the deal was.
Mm.
And one of them looked at me and he said, "I know you." He said, "I know your father. Your father is crazy." What he what he meant was my father was a serious country boy
Mm.
who had a family to raise, and he despised guys from the city who looked down on people from the South.
mm,
Mm.
And so what he was talking about is my father was a very respected man,
Mhm.
but he didn't take that.
Right.
He would deal with that. So it was based on that he was talking about that. But that for the first time opened a door for me
mm.
that this crew wanted me to hang with them. And I began to think to myself, I'm pretty smart. I could probably be a pretty good thug.
Oh, wow.
Know? And
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought, if you can't beat them,
Yeah.
join them.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized something right away. You could not have a conscience if you were going to be a criminal.
Absolutely.
But I, but I took it to another level. I became so unpredictable that even
Mm.
sometimes the guys who was with me didn't want to tell me when they were going to do something. And it just so happens in January of 1978, 77, pardon me, a snowstorm hit Newark, New Jersey. And it was a major one. I'm trying to remember, I believe it was 78. Yeah, 78. A snowstorm hit, and that was ideal conditions for us to do this robbery, which a friend had told us about. Now I get to not only put myself in a position where I can gain more respect, I think,
Mm.
but I also don't know I'm putting myself in a position now that I'm now going to be marked by law enforcement as having a MO
Mm.
that they're looking for.
Okay.
So we go into this liquor store on 16th Street and Springfield Avenue, Holmes Liquor Store, and it's still there.
Mhm.
And we go into this place, and all the other guys went in first. Now, mind you, I'm a 16-year-old. The snow is knee high. It's knee high. But I'm the last guy going in. I got a sawed-off shotgun up my sleeve of an army jacket. And when I come in last, they are to announce the robbery. Well, in the process of the robbery, I not only saw two girls that knew me from our tie, but also a patron who was drunk refused to cooperate. The two girls came by me and looked and saw me, and I gave them a signal like shush.
Mm-hmm.
And they shook their heads and dropped their heads and went to the back like they was told. But the drunk man grabbed the barrel of one of the friends' guns, one of the guys with me, and the guys start hollering, shoot him, shoot him. But this guy had never done anything like that before. So naturally, I built this reputation up, and all the guys start looking at me.
Mm.
Okay, what we gonna do about this? I blocked everything out like I always do. I looked at the gentleman. I pointed the shotgun at him. He was a big man, well, I was 16, so he was definitely big to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, hey, let him go. He looked at me and said, you ain't no bigger than him. And he came towards me. I blacked out everything. And all I can tell you is what I remember is a pop
Mm.
and my ears ringing and everything seeming like it just slowed down, like it went into slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing a part of this man's head fly off
Mm.
Oh my God.
and his body rock in the front of me and him fall in the front of me. And I'm standing there frozen and I'm thinking to myself at that second, I can't rewind this.
Wow.
And so now I'm frozen in this screams. Now my hearing is coming back. I smell gunpowder. The screams going on. The guys start running from the store. One of them grabbed me in the chest and pulls me, and I hop over the man and run, and we all run. And we get away, all except one. I'm on the streets for 6 months before they caught up with me because one of the guys got caught in something else and he gave us all up.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Mm.
And that's how I ended up in the prison system from an arts high student, a kid who
Mm.
who the family thought would be the first one to go to
I know it
college.
must have devastated your family, huh?
I can't even tell you the look on my mother. It first of all, when the police had me in Green Street,
Mm-hmm.
they kept saying we got Dennis Porter. And my mother said, no, you don't. You don't have Dennis Porter. Now my older brother had used my name one time. She said, I think you got David Jr. And then they asked her, well, how old is David Jr.? She said, well, David Jr. is 23. She said, no, man. This kid is about 16,
Mm.
17 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
they put me on the phone with her, and my mother asked me, what is going on? I said, Ma, I can't explain it. So my mother came down there with my sister. But it was afterwards when they took me out to take me to the youth house that I saw my mother walking from the police station on Green Street, or on the other side of Green Street, and I saw how weak it made her.
Mm. I can
And I
imagine.
looked to the side and saw that, and I said, wow. And the interesting thing was my mother only survived that incident 7 years, 8 years.
Mm.
Wow.
At, at 45, cancer claimed her.
Oh.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Mm. Sorry to hear
And
that.
so, that was one of the wake up calls. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
my older brother getting gunned down in the third year.
Oh mercy.
Mm.
Mm.
That was another wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
How about your dad?
My dad, thank God for him.
Mm.
He held that family together.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me on the phone, he said, I tried my best. And I said, Pop, this is not you.
Yeah.
This is not you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the experience or the
Mm-hmm.
experiences that shaped me to make me realize, are you more than this?
Well, you were
Is
just a
this all
kid, really,
is
when you
this
had this
all
happen.
you are?
Mm-hmm. You just
So that's what brought me to who I am.
okay. And you've gotten, I've just read your bio, you've gotten so many awards from different people. Just go through that a minute. How did you, I know how, I'll ask how you felt about getting awards from the mayors of the different cities and even Councilman Booker. Just give us some
Right. Yes, ma'am. Well, I knew coming out that I was going to have some value to the public. I told you I was an artist.
Right.
And 2 years before I got out, I wanted to prove that this organization was about reform. So I sat down in the prisons and I started drawing this picture. The picture was of a young man wearing a hoodie, and he was pointing a gun directly out of the picture. And I called this picture, I put the words around it, what every young man should know about a gun. And then it said murder, 30 years, armed robbery, 15 years, assault, 15 years, possession, 5 years, carjacking, 20 years. And then it says murder, I mean, pardon me, it was one more, but it says, now you can't say you don't know. And I sent this out to my little brother who does t-shirts. And my brother put this on the front of a t-shirt in Newark during the first gun swap program under Mayor Sharp James. And as a result of that, the mayor was one of the first ones to get the shirt and wear it publicly, and looked to try to start a campaign in Newark, an anti-violence campaign. My brother took the shirt to the Black Expo in New York that year. And everybody from Shaq to Wendy Williams to the heavyweight champion at the time, Michael Moorer, and eventually Samuel Jackson and Spike Lee got wind of the drawing. And in '94, Spike Lee started making a movie called Clockers. It was all about the drug game in the projects in the cities. And he saw the detective on the set wearing my shirt. The detective was the technical advisor for the movie. And he asked him, where did you get that from? And he said, believe it or not, as a young man sitting up in prison right now, designed this shirt. And Spike Lee had him to ask me if I would allow my image to be shown in his movie.
Oh my.
Wow.
Wow.
And I said, yes, absolutely.
Right. Wow.
To my surprise, a few weeks later, I went up to parole, and sitting in the front of parole, they questioned me about what is this prodigal sons thing, Dennis? What's this scheme? And I told them, this is not a scheme. This is about a person who walked in the door thinking they were one thing. And now I know who I am.
Amen.
And so I refuse to even allow you people to hold me to that state number. I know I got to finish this time, and I'm going to get out sooner or later, but this has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with my soul.
Right.
It has everything to do that if I don't get this lesson, it's not going to get better. So I'm not doing this to impress y'all. I'm doing this because I have to.
Okay.
Well, it's very unusual that a parolee with a murder could go into parole the first time and get anything smaller than maybe a 7-year hit. Most of them get 7 years and up. There were so many letters for prisoners who had signed the contract of repentance that prodigals created and sent it to their parole folders.
Right.
This is why they were questioning me about what is this scheme you got going on. But when they heard my response to what they were saying, they asked me to step out of the room. Pardon me.
That is
When I stepped
fascinating.
out, when I stepped out the room, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I know I had prayed. I had told the Lord, I had said, Lord, boy, if you gave me a 3-year hit, boy, that would be good. If you gave me a 3-year hit, because actually that just means you do half of it. As long as you don't stay in trouble, get in trouble, you only going to do 18 months.
Oh, okay.
So I said, boy, Lord, I know this is a tall order, but Boy, I never asked God to let me go home. All those years, I knew I was facing what I did, but I said, I want to go home, Lord, you know. And I went, they called me to come back in. So when I came back in, uh, they said a couple of things, but they said, we're going to make you a deal. If you, um, if you come back in here the way that you came in here, he said, well, we're going to give you a 3-year hit. That's what he said.
Oh, wow.
He said, if you come back in here like this the next time, then we're going to recommend you for a date to go home. So I said to him, I said, you're going to remember me, right? He said, oh, yeah, Mr. Porter, we're going to remember you.
Mm.
So I left there. I went back. All the guys who got big time like me, they were waiting at the gates because they figure they probably gonna blast him. He probably gonna come back with a big one. So when I came through the gate and they start calling me, they said, "What's up?" I said, "I got a 3-year hit." They said, "What?" Now
Mm.
they know you got to be darn near snitch to get that.
But
Mm.
that's
But they
God.
also, yeah, but they also knew the work that was being done that we were
Right.
doing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't question because they were watching it happen. They were
Mm-hmm.
watching officers support it. They were watching officers help us have meetings unauthorized.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was the reason why I went to the warden and had to tell him because the meetings were getting too big. Guys were coming from other wings, sneaking
Oh.
over so that they could hear it. So
Mm.
I had to cancel this meeting because it looked like a riot was going to happen. I didn't even understand what was happening at first. But then the guy said, they over here to hear about prodigal sons and daughters. I said, what?
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh no, they got to break this up, you know?
Uh-huh.
So that it was already established in the prison that the warden was a man named Robert Stevens. I left this out. The reason why I got out of the hole was because I wrote the warden a letter and told him that even though, I unjustly was put in this hole, I told him that this officer had no idea that he was going to be the catalyst to show me my purpose in life.
Yeah. All right.
And I signed it the prodigal son.
Okay.
Now, what I did not know was that the warden was a deacon.
Oh.
Wow.
And he's a black man named Robert Stevens, who actually ran the first halfway house in Newark before he later got this position.
Uh-huh.
And he wrote me back and said, they say that we don't correct people, but sometimes it has the right effect.
Mm.
And God intervenes.
That's right.
And and he said, so I'm reducing your whole time, which was 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reducing your whole time to 75 days. And I had
Oh, praise
60
the.
in at that
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I only got 2 more weeks in here. That was just
Oh.
time to wrap up the program and write it out and
Mm-hmm.
get it going. So that's the story of how the organization was formed, how I went through the system with it,
Mm-hmm.
and how it recruited large numbers of prisoners who they feel like now, as many of them actually have come out and graduated the programs we set up out here.
Okay.
Some some of them have taken it to other states. That's how it got into other
Mhm.
states
Mhm.
Right.
because members picked it up. So
Oh,
that's how we got to this point.
I
That's
see you even
phenomenal.
into Africa.
Yeah.
That is so impressive. I tell you, bring
Phenomenal. That's
tears to my
phenomenal.
eye because that is a story for all of us to know the depth and the resilience
Mhm.
of a people. You know, it says something about that. Or let Norm, if I could just see my crew for a moment, we'll be right back or with our guest. I'm so glad that Robert Cabbage good afternoon on deck. Askia Muhammad, good afternoon. Lloyd Shiver, Reverend Clyde Dillons, he's watching. Okay, Robert Cabbage Juanita McClure. I am so pleased that you all, I know you all are just enjoying what you're hearing. Well, you're just inspired by what you're hearing because they tell you we got to be our brothers' keepers, and we
Yes,
got to reinstate our village concept.
that's right.
Well,
We
that's
don't
what
do it.
it's
Who's
all
going to
about.
do it?
That's
You
exactly
know,
right.
and God will raise you up if you have a sincere heart. He
Mhm.
will raise you up, and your story is just so phenomenal. It's so indicative of how God deals with His children. He
Mhm.
does not forget us. He does not look at us the way the world looks at us, and
Mhm.
He knows what we go through,
Exactly.
and He knew the gifts that were in you,
Yeah.
and He knew your heart. And I
Yeah.
know your mother is proud of you. And I heard what you said. And it is heart wrenching for any mother because my son served 5 years for possession. So you were right on, okay? But he had a praying mother,
Yeah.
and I had a daughter who needed a kidney, his older sister. And I prayed and I prayed, and God was working. And my son got out in time to give his sister
Oh, praise the
his
Lord. That
kidney.
is a
So
story for you to tell.
I know what God could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just have to get back to Him.
Yeah. And my brother, so what are you doing now? You're still running the program, I'm sure. And I just want you to give us a hint of some of the awards that you got, and you can't go through all of them because I see a whole list of them. But just for my audience, for my villagers to know that when we can connect, or we do connect with each other, and we bring us, well, we are the ones that are going to bring us back to our original self because so much was lost in those
Right.
200, at least the first 200 years of them
Yes.
snatching of us out of our habitat
Yeah.
and bringing us into this no man land. Of course, many of us were here already, so we know we have always inhabited the earth before they did. But to the extent that you have done mighty work within this system,
Wow.
it's just fascinating.
I am so impressed.
I am very impressed. So, where are you now? What are you doing, and how is it moving as we speak? You may be mute again.
Actually, a woman that I had met previous to her getting incarcerated in 1999,
Hmm.
um, went to prison for 10 and a half years, stayed in contact, became a best selling author while incarcerated.
Mm.
She's actually now a four-time best-selling author named Wahida Clark,
Okay.
and she began to fund the organization from prison.
Wow.
Wow.
Why Wahida Clark is now the president of Prodigal Sons and Daughters.
Hmm.
I actually retired from that post
Hmm.
about 5 or 6 years ago, but I'm still a consultant for the organization. I'm still the program developer. I still speak on behalf of the organization,
Right.
but mainly I'm a consultant to other organizations and help other organizations get up and get started. Right now, I'm sitting in a sober house that I helped the organization called Regeneration One
Hmm.
establish. I'm very selective about who I do these things for because we've been in it long enough to know that some people are in it just to make a profit, and other people really want to heal the community.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sorry, I'm probably losing contact with what your question was.
Just wanted to know what you
But
wanted to
Your awards, his awards.
your awards. But before you get to that, I want you to know that I know that you, Mary Louise, I got to remember her, Miriam Bay. She
Oh yeah.
introduced us to you, and she talked about the fantastic work you were doing, and I think you had gone on her show at some point. So
Yes.
we appreciate her. I just want to give a holler out to her to
Yes.
let her know that you are on, and we appreciate it. And we're going to certainly have you back again.
Yeah.
But my question to you, I guess, and look, Rose, you have one. But
Yeah,
my
just one.
question was, what are you? I think I asked you, what are you doing now? You just said you were retired,
Right.
but you're still working.
Right. What I'm saying.
But you have some battles
Thank
and
you. Thank you
wars.
for bringing me back, though,
Uh
to
huh.
that,
Uh huh.
actually answering your question.
Uh huh.
You see, I got a logo on
Yeah.
that I'm wearing right now and the matching hat.
Okay.
That is an organization I just started called Building Black Boys.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
Dr. Jawanza Kajufu, as you know, did a
Yes.
series on the
Great man.
conspiracy to destroy black boys, right?
Right. Right.
And we refuse to allow that very important research to go unnoticed.
Yes.
We recognize that the descendants of slaves are at a disadvantage because culturally they've been stripped, and this puts them at a disadvantage to where,
Yes.
unlike other children who maintain their culture,
Right.
from the moment they open their eyes in a household or their ears, they see their culture, they see their language. I mean, they hear their language, and everything else that has to do with what gives them the advantage in the world.
That's
Right.
right.
We, on the other hand, being disconnected, we learn these lessons too late, and we learn them too often on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Exactly.
building building black boys is all about understanding if you're going to change the dynamics of the future of the black community,
Yes.
you're going to have to start earlier than we're thinking. You can't wait until they become teenagers anymore. You
Right.
can't
Right.
do that.
Right.
No.
You know? So now that's what building black boys is all about. It's about it goes all the way up until the male adults, and it's never a point where we should stop doing whatever it takes for us to catch up. Let me
Exactly.
just give you an example. Let me just give you one example, and I'm gonna let you speak.
No, keep
The
on.
Jewish
Keep on
community.
talking.
We want to
Pardon me,
hear
ma'am.
you. We
We,
want to hear you. You're the guest.
I said, no,
Yes,
keep on
ma'am.
talking. We want to hear you.
Yeah.
The Jewish community works very hard to assure that they take advantage of the opportunity at the very earliest stages of children's development,
Hmm.
where their minds are like a sponge, to
Yes.
incorporate into that their thinking immediately what it is that their culture and identity and goals are as a people. So the children, most of them, you will never find in public school next to our children.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
They go from the synagogue to their own schools within the synagogue,
Hmm.
and truthfully, they are not taught to be employees unless it's for another Jew.
Absolutely.
They are taught they are taught to be bosses and to manage other people's lives.
Hmm.
They are taught that they are the chosen, and that gives them the right that everybody else who is not chosen, they don't owe it to them
Right.
to consider them equals or to even treat them that way.
Hmm.
So, for that reason, we're not seeking to be like that. But we
Right.
are smart enough to recognize that as black men, some black men from among us must wake up and not just be men of words, but men
Hmm.
of action.
Absolutely.
And action immediately dissolves anything about blacks not being able to unite, because we know that was a lie anyway.
Exactly.
Right. Right. Right.
A lie. We do unite. I don't want to even hear it when they are making that. I wrote a book some time ago, Verbal Healing, and I try to reject those kinds of expression that we have been brainwashed or brain dirtied, as Dr. Calfani can say, into believing what we hear. You
Right.
know, we don't stick together. And I always ask the question then why. I always put it in on this podcast. My villagers know. I make the question of if we are not doing that, if we can look at the 400 years that they brought us over here and all everything changed. We were building pyramids, we were creating science, we were creating,
Right.
developing everything. Then what happened? So we're not doing it. And I'm suggesting, my brother, I talk about restoration. I know we've been diagnosed, and that's great. We have been diagnosed. We have very real diagnosis of what we were, what we went through, but now we need to be treated. Because slavery was not just a crime, it was an injury that is still manifesting itself throughout our community. So when we find a person like a Clarence Thomas, we may just look at him and say, well, there he is, and why is he doing that? But there's a reason. I'm like Maya Angelou. If you knew better, you do better. I do believe that. And particularly when I know of our history prior to the 400 years, something tells me we need to get more in depth with creating an industry the same as you would oncology, the same as you would cardiology. Ours should be Africanology. That we have specific people getting to us to have us trained in ways that would reverse the psychosis that have been placed upon us. I want to really talk to you later because you sound like you're going in that direction. Because
Yes, ma'am.
that's my objective here on at podcast, to begin to ask the question. Then, if we're not doing this, then why aren't we? If we're not sticking together, then why aren't we? If we don't love each
Right.
other, then why? There's a why to it. You know what I'm saying? Not an excuse,
Yes.
but an explanation.
The explanation. That's right.
Yeah.
And people who quoted, I saw your podcast with Miss Bay,
Okay.
and the Dr. Georgia Gru's name came up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, her name came up. But you're absolutely right. We do have the scholars. I mean, we have Amos Wilson. We have
Right.
the list just goes on.
On and
We
on.
we we got noted historic, pardon me, historians,
Yeah.
Dr. Ben
Yes.
and Chancellor Williams
Williams.
and J.A. Rogers. And
Yeah.
we got enough evidence. What we don't have is that we do not realize that we are living in a default culture.
Mm-hmm.
We are living in a culture that is not purely one that we have developed ourselves,
Right.
that gives the freedom to place into those traditions that which restores or rejuvenates and renews us
Absolutely.
through the practice of our traditions.
Not
Exactly.
only our tradition, anything that is less than the Zionists, whatever they want, because they and the elite rule the world. And one of the main things is that it is the institutions that is the problem. We have a lot of social sciences that informs the institutions, but they control and put their dollars into the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we build something, it is number one on their list to tear it down. If we have a leader that rise up, they got to get rid of them. We've lived this cycle over and over again, and I think this is the first time in human history where we can break this. Which brings me to my question to you. Um, my brothers are police officers in Newark. One is retired,
Hmm.
okay, and they're the Moors. And one of my brothers, the reason that he was led was because of a gentleman who was doing something like you were doing in this organization you're talking about now. And his last name was Scott Bay, and he was a police officer. And I'm sure you might have heard of him because they just
Yeah.
named, they just, I thought you would. They just, a very good friend of the families, and I'm sorry that we lost him recently. And they just named a street after him, Shepherd Avenue. They just named
Hmm.
that in his honor. But he was doing a program like that. And my brother, as a police officer in Newark, is doing a program recruiting, teaching young people about the police system, the penal system. He's educating them, and those who want to, go on to be cadets and officers and in the system to help others, each one teach one. He's doing that. So
Mhm.
my question to you: are you working with any of the Newark or otherwise police? Because I see you work with New Jersey, Georgia, Florida, and even Ghana. Could you just tell us a little bit about that really quick? I know the time is going, but I like.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we knew that in law enforcement and most sects of any group of people, there are always two sides. There's always those who are pro system and those who are trying to improve the system.
Right.
You know, and yes, we have worked with law enforcement quite a bit, and it's because we had to build that bridge. To some degree, your brother represents a new generation. He represents represents a generation where it's probably a lot more safer for him to introduce something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And because of where he is, he probably can do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, if he was in maybe another place, he probably would be getting a lot of flack from the blue themselves. But Northern State Prison, when it opened, had its officers were all graduates. Most of them, about 80%, were just high school graduates.
Wow.
Okay.
And so when I met them, they were 18, 19 years old and
Mm.
scared to death.
Mm.
Mm.
So there's a lot of law enforcement who we raised
Mm.
in the prisons.
Okay.
And so now they are helpers, they are
Wow.
friends,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we see when we talk about tying our community back together. When we talk about what unity is,
Right.
unity comes about because the hearts are won over. You
Mm-hmm.
win people's hearts over. That's how movements happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the fact that we know what went wrong or what the past was.
Right.
It's not that we don't know how to fix it now. You just can't do it with people whose hearts
Mm-hmm.
now are not centered around how important this is, where
Understood.
this is their purpose.
Right.
Yes.
You
Yes.
ladies, you ladies are on here right now because this is your
My
purpose.
Yes.
purpose,
To the heart.
exactly. To the heart, to the. Okay, 459. Norma, we could just see our villager one more time. I just want to holler at him and say, love you, Sony Shivers, Rashida Johnson, Lloyd Shivers, Reverend Dunnins, Robbie Cavishstock, Juanita McClure, and then someone else you had tried to pull up there. I know I can't see you all. Okay, Askia, Robert, and someone else. Bring it up again. Don't want to miss anybody. Uh, okay, Robert Cavishstock and Askia. Okay, we are so proud of you all. We're
Yes.
so appreciative of
Mm.
all of you who watched our show. We told you we're going to have a great guest on today, and we just want you to share. We want you to click whatever you see, or click to keep people coming, and because this is what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
For information, you remember, least we perish for lack of information. We
Yes.
want to make sure we bring you correct information, because there's a lot of information out there that's not necessarily all good. But with the information we bring you for uh, of this podcast is to restore. We've had a lot of diagnoses. We've been
Yes.
diagnosed. Now we need to be treated for the injury that was sustained upon us, because honest to God, you can't be over here in this place for 200 years cannibalized and all. I just learned lately, and here I'm 85 years old. I just learned that they was eating us at
Yes.
one point.
Yes.
So there was a serious stuff done to us. And if it was done to us without treatment, something tells me that there need to be treatment. So we're going to talk further about that. We're going to always talk about it, because I got my documentary out talking about it, and I got other things that we're going to keep this in front of you. So we're going to determine, we're going to demand, we're going to exhort our people to come together and bring us bring us something that's going to at least attempt to recognize the fact that we need healing.
Yes.
I thank you all so much, and my brother, we're gonna get you
Yes.
back.
Definitely
Because,
bring him
yeah,
back.
Yes.
you have a whole lot to say, and we are just so appreciative that you could come. I know you were going to be here in person, but the rain stopped you. For those who don't know,
Yes.
we had a serious rain this morning. It's almost a thunderstorm or so.
Right.
But in any case, I want to
Mm.
say God bless to my
Yes, God bless you.
villagers, and we're going to see you all next Monday.
Thank you so much for joining us.